in Bangalore. Yeah.
Okay. So since how much time you have been working in Amazon?
I started back as an intern in January. Like we have that 6 month internship. So since January, I'm associated with Amazon. Then I got a PPO after that, starting in July. So it's been almost around 10 months since I'm working with Amazon in different job roles.
Okay. So before Amazon, you have previously been an intern in some other companies also.
Yeah. So I did my summer internship in 2021 after my third year at Goldman Sachs, which is a banking company. So I was a summer analyst. So I did an internship for around 2 months there.
Okay. So how was your journey in college?
Yeah, so pretty much most of the part went in the pandemic itself. We barely got to go to college for like 1 and 1.5 year. After that, 2 years went into pandemic, and towards the end, we have the last semester offline. So it was mostly virtual, but the time we spent in college, we built some meaningful connections, and people helped around getting to know stuff and understanding to basically shape your journey ahead and try to understand what's going on in the community and everything. So, yeah, I really hope all those years were in person rather than having it virtually. But yeah, here we are now back to normal.
Okay. So did you have in mind that you have to crack Amazon or you? How did you get to that?
So, like, Amazon not was not really my target. Like, initially, when I went into college, I went with a mindset to crack the best company that comes into our campus. And at that time, it was Goldman Sachs. So, my target was Goldman Sachs, and I did start preparing for that in my initial year itself, and was eventually able to crack the internship and got a PPO. But then this opportunity struck, and Amazon I never imagined, but yeah, I got it here, and now I'm working as a developer.
Okay. So how did you get this opportunity? Means by campus placement or off campus?
Yeah, I got it off campus. Like I directly applied on the job portal and got hired as an intern.
Okay. So how was the preparation journey? Could you elaborate, please?
Yeah, so I was not good at coding when I started. Like in my first year, I was barely even able to write C programs and all, and I really didn't like the idea of competitive programming at all during my initial years. Like all of my peers would start coding in Java, C, and C++ on these platforms like CodeChef, Codeforces, like you might have all heard of. But I was never of that idea. I was really into development, and since my 12th standard itself, I am working on Android. So I have been familiar with Java and Android concepts, but competitive was not my thing. But eventually, when you get to understand things like what's required and what's necessary to get into the place where you could do things you like, so competitive programming was a stepping stone, and it was very essential in the interview preparation. So you must do a competitive programming for a while to basically strengthen your DSA concepts and get to know more algorithms. How do you approach a problem? So competitive programming really helps you in that perspective. But so I started CP in like second year. That also under peer pressure. My friends forced me to get started with it. So I initially started with lead code because that was, I guess, better had better interface. And since I am an Android guy, I liked creating interfaces and dealing with users. So lead code was my primary choice because it has a great UI and community was also great around lead code. So I used to do lead code like one problem a day I started with, and then pandemic hit. So I initially had more time to practice more problems, and by the end of I guess 1 year, I was at like around 800 problems. So had almost most of the topics covered, and that gave me a headshot, and I was able to basically get covered the most of the concepts that were required to crack an interview.
Okay. So how much time do you think is sufficient for a candidate to prepare for Amazon, and how much time did you take
Uh,
specifically?
Time, I don't think should be a constraint. It depends on how much are you able to grasp and what is your objective. So Back then, my objective was just to crack an internship at Goldman Sachs so that I could get a PPO. So, first thing, you should have a clear objective, like what you're pursuing and what you're running behind. So, if you're pursuing for an internship, 6 months is sufficient time to understand DSA and practice CP fairly enough so that you will be able to crack an internship. But if you are aiming directly for placements, I think you require a little more time because the depth that's required to get an understanding of increases with the job roles. So as an intern, they don't expect you to know much because you are still in your college years. But when you're getting placed, they expect you because you are at the end of the college years and they expect you to know a lot of more things. So it's always easier to go via the PPO route and it takes less time compared to going directly via placements, which will require eventually more efforts.
Okay. So, what were the main topics you focused during your preparation? What was the strategy?
So main topics were basically from the DSA itself, like all the basic data structure you must know and the algorithms around that. There is no need to basically mug up everything. It eventually comes down with the practice. So you start with the basic data structure like array and stack and linked list, and eventually you will be able to understand how trees are functioning, and then you can move towards graph, which is slightly advanced topic. So most of the people don't do graphs, but I suggest that you get a gist of how graphs work because they're in some way related to trees. So it's better you basically polish your knowledge so that if anything comes up related to that, you are not stuck at a point and able to go ahead from that itself.
Okay. So, is DSA a main and most important part in the interview, or because it's a vast topic? So, what are the main important topics in DSA?
So in DSA, usually it depends on what kind of job role the firm is looking for. Okay. So if you're going into some data science type of field, they'll eventually be asking you a lot of questions related to graphs and algorithms because they want to optimize their systems. But otherwise, in a general SD role, what you generally see is the range of question varies from advanced concept of array to trees. Like, that's the range in which you get questions asked from, and it really depends on the interviewer and the condition in which you are for the topics to basically be given priority. But as a whole, you should have a idea of the basic data structures so that you can evolve your methods and try to basically crack any problem with the basic data structure itself, and the interviewer will eventually help you to uncover what better data structure could be used. But I would like to emphasize on this that you should basically have a clear understanding of all the data structure because anything might come up from anything.
Yeah. So, how many rounds were there, and could you tell us more about each in detail?
So, like in my internship, I had 2 rounds, and both were based on DSA only. So, in the first round, they asked me a problem that was related to sliding window concept that you see in arrays. So we had to implement something similar to that. So that was the problem. And you basically, if I talk about the interview in detail, so what happens is you go to the interview, you have the introductions, and then the interviewer throws you with a problem. Okay. Now, what most of the people get wrong here is that they just start solving the problem because that's the thing where most of the people lack. You don't have to directly go and solve the problem. First, you need to understand the context of the problem and what they are trying to ask you. So, ask as many questions as you want and get a clarity from the interviewer what exactly they're looking forward to. Because those problems might seem familiar to you, but could be quite different. Just because you read the problem statement and thought it's similar to what I've already done, it's not always the case. So first recommendation is to get clarity of each and every detail that the problem requires, and then only start discussing the solutions. First, build a mind map. Think out loudly. Uh, take inputs from the interviewer, and they'll definitely guide you in if you are approaching the problem correctly or not. And because they also want that good engineers should join the company, right? So take help from them and you will eventually be able to crack the problem if you have a good grasp on DSA. Algorithms will basically boost up your solution, but eventually you could build up, even if you forget some name algorithms, you will be able to build up if your concepts are clear. So focus on understanding how algorithms are working rather than just mugging up how they are implemented. That would be my recommendation.
Okay, so audience is asking which is well, what would you choose as a beginner, lead code or hacker rank for preparation?
So personally, I recommend Lead Code because they have this cool feature where the questions are tagged along with the company name. So it gives you a head start. Okay, so you get a pattern of your target company so that you will be able to unravel more when you are asked in the interview. Because every company has a certain pattern, and if you follow that pattern, it becomes easier for you to understand what the interviewer is asking and approach a solution. Because there would be some differences in the problems, but the core ideology remains the same for a company throughout. Because internally all the companies follow a set of guidelines on which the problems are based. So if you are able to crack those guidelines, you will be able to solve any problem thrown by the company. But specifically, if you're not targeting anything, HackerRank is a good start. They have these modules where you have different paths that you can follow, paths for DSA, algorithms, trees, linked lists, etc. So that way you can basically get a head start into the concepts, but as you advance and have a goal set in mind, then you can move to lead code. That way it would be more beneficial for you. Even lead code, I guess, now has this problem filter based on the type of algorithm you are looking to, type of data structure you are looking into. So that also helps, but it should be a mix and balanced approach of both of the two. I mean, like on lead code, the problems which are there are already asked by some company, then they put it there. But on HackerRank you get more variety because there are a lot of problem setters who will be putting out problems based on their own imagination. So if you want variety, go to HackerRank. If you want concise preparation, you have limited time, go to lead code.
Okay, and according to so which language should we focus? Java, Python, C++? plus plus?
So, like as per the industry standard, most of the MNCs work on Java. So that would be my recommendation because after even you get a job, you will have to have work on Java. Even if you are a data scientist, the libraries which are written by other folks earlier in the company would surely be in Java. So don't struggle between the languages. Pick up one language, make it strong, understand the concepts, and then you can easily migrate. Like I myself learned Java, but I'm easily able to code Python, CPP, etc. because underlying concepts are same, just the format and structures change, right? So just pick up one language. Any object-oriented language should be fine for that case.
Okay, so coming back to technical rounds. So if there is a situation in a coding round, like if we are going to code for a question and approach is right, but we don't have all the test cases passed, so what happen in these type of situations?
So it's not very essential that you get all the test cases correct, right? Because that's the thing that's there for the online test to be cleared. Because on online test you are evaluated by computer. It will evaluate how many cases you passed and how many you failed. Based on that, it will give you a score. But when you are sitting with a human interviewer, you have that connect with the interviewer, like in the direction in which you are thinking. So even if a few cases fail, that shouldn't matter because the interviewer is a human and he'll understand in what direction you are thinking and are you correct or not. So that way it gives you a leverage. Even if the cases are failing, but you feel your approach is right and the interviewer aligns with your opinion, then it should be good enough.
Okay, okay. What is the main problem that candidates face during these rounds, and what was the main problem you faced?
So the main problem that we face, I already mentioned earlier, is that we hurry up towards solutions, right? We see a problem and we feel like, okay, I have seen similar problem. I'll rush up to solution before I forget it. But that's not the best approach. Like initially, even I struggled a bit. Like in Goldman Sachs internship, I had like 4 rounds of interview. So in those rounds, in the first round, I struggled a bit because the problems were quite similar to what I have already done. So I was trying to jump towards solutions, but that's the issue, right? We, as a human, our natural tendency is to forget things. So as soon as we see some resemblance, we just try to push all of our thoughts into that one piece so that we don't forget any detail. right? So rather, if you see similar problem, just try to pen down your observation, take out a minute. You are always allowed to carry a diary and a pen in an interview, right? So just jot down your thoughts and then try to relate it with the problem, rather than having to pump all your thoughts in once. Push it in a stepwise fashion so that the interviewer should also feel connected to the problem, right? It's not only you who are answering the problem, it's the interviewer also who is there with you, along with you, to basically drive up to a solution. So feel in that way, and it should get easier for you to crack the interview.
Okay, so audience is asking how to practice recursion. Can you please suggest some tips?
So, like, if you want to go into the nitty-gritties of concepts, you have these YouTube videos where there are a lot of playlists surrounding a particular concept, right? So that's the best place to get started with if you are totally new to something. But if you know some of the stuff, then you can just start practicing easy questions. You build up concepts and move towards medium and difficult. So there is no specific way in which you approach a concept. It's just like how much you know and how much depth you want to cover. Based on that, you need to find your solutions.
Okay. So how to build up confidence in front of the technical interviewer? So the
Confidence basically naturally comes up when you are confident enough from inside that I will be able to crack this thing. Okay. And if in general, I'm talking, if you are underconfident in general in life, then I highly recommend you to practice mock interviews with your friends or your family members, so that you don't get devastated when a problem is thrown up to you. A lot of people lose confidence when they see problems, right? Even if someone is 5 star on courtship, when they see a problem, they can get nervous, right? That's the main problem which most of the people face, because they don't have enough practice of interacting with human beings. We are living in 21st century, and most of our interaction are happening through, say, social media, or we video call our friends. That's where human interaction is lagging, right? We are using technology as a bridge to connect with other human beings, and that's what will make you lag behind if you are not confident enough to speak to fellow human beings. So practice well in advance, talk to people, like in general also you should talk to people face to face. That will help you build more confidence. And during technical interview, just feel that interviewer is there to help you build a better company. So he wants you to be part of the company if your skill set is matching that. And he's not there to judge you based on your appearance or anything. The main motive is that he wants you to be able to solve the real world challenges that are there uh, in the real world. Okay. And so you should be able to crack the interviews if you have that particular mindset, rather than having just a mindset that you will be judged in an interview. You should focus more on how you are presenting yourself, like how you're putting up your thoughts.
okay. So how much time should you take for thinking about the solution and finally writing the solution? Mean what should be the time distribution?
So it actually depends a lot on the problem itself, right? If it's a basic problem and you are taking a lot of time, then it's a red flag, right? Even for the interview, that you are taking a lot of time to crack an easy problem. So first step would be to judge the difficulty of problem. If you feel the problem lies somewhere in the easy to medium bracket, take around 50 to 60% of the time for the solution discussion, and then start coding. But if you feel the problem is somewhere in the medium to hard range, take almost 70% of the time thinking and then coding, because you don't have to complete the code in such cases. And in extreme cases, if you get a hard problem, the whole interview just went in the discussion part only. You are not even asked to code. So
Oh.
it's depends, yeah.
So what is the importance of development like projects? One is asking in the comments.
Yeah, so dev is equally important, because like I have been a developer since my school days. Like since 12th, I am coding Android apps. So my orientation from initial days only was to develop a product. But it depends on what type of job role you are looking to, because some companies will hire coders, some company hire developers, right? So developers are there to build a product based on some problem that they're given. and coders basically just follow the instructions and code. They use algorithms, they optimize the code, but they don't have to do anything with the core product logic itself. So it depends on which field you need to go, but it's generally good to have a few projects in the framework you like, because that reflects like your diversification of interest, right? Like you should be open to everything that is coming on your plate. As a student, you should not consolidate yourself to a particular thing, okay, that I want to only code or I want to only develop Android apps. You should be open to any idea that's coming up your way, and then analyze based on your situation how appropriate is it to pick up or not pick up.
So, is competitive programming really important in the beginning? Yeah, it is. Basically, what would you say?
Yeah, yes. CP is like the stepping stone, like I mentioned that, because without CP, you won't be able to understand the concept of any language. That gives you a head start, and you understand what exactly you are writing. Rather than blindly following some tutorial, you should always have a hands-on, and CP is the best way to get a hands-on and expertise on any language.
Yeah. So, what are the things because of which a candidate should join Amazon or other companies like Microsoft, Google, rather than other startups nowadays?
So I'd like to introduce a bit of macroeconomics concepts in this. Like if you see the era between 2017 or 2018 till 2021, there was a startup boom. Like you should have read in the news that every year new unicorns are forming, because that was the time where a lot of funding was happening in these startups, and they were able to offer a lot of money more than what MNCs could offer, because they had new cash which they could burn up at a never ending rate. But things have changed now. You can see recession is blooming on us, and VC funding has frozen. Even Y Combinator issued a notice earlier this year that all the startups who are still on the VC and are still trying to raise funds should basically try to optimize their budgets, because VC funding is freezing due to increased interest rate in the US and India as well. So it all depends on the complete macroeconomic situation. Then only you should decide what company to join. Like initially I also had offers from a few startups which were offering similar pay as Amazon but more perks, because in startups you get a lot of extra things which you don't get usually in MNCs, because MNCs follow basically follow some structures which is well defined, and they don't need to lure candidates by giving attractive benefits. Like you might have heard Bharat Pay was giving BMW bikes to folks who join their company, right? So MNCs don't have to do all this gimmicky stuff because they know they'll get the pure talent just by the brand name. So before accepting an offer, you should analyze the macroeconomic situation, the company's financial, like is the startup in still a funding stage? Is it growing some revenues or not? Because usually loss-making startups end up uh, laying off employees. You can see like companies like Ola, Byju's have recently laid off a lot of employees, but you haven't have a news that Amazon or Microsoft India is laying off. There is a news that Amazon US has started laying off employees, but in India there still is no impact, because they are so particular about their hiring process that they don't have to usually lay off until the conditions become extremely worse. In that case, every company will be laying off. But usually, there is a better job security when you are in MNCs. The systems are much more calibrated, the processes are well defined. So, in the initial years, I would recommend to join MNCs like in the current financial situation. For say next 2 to 3 years, MNCs should be a better choice compared to startups. And let's see like if the VC funding again starts blooming up, then startup would be the preferred choice, because they'll again start offering more money.
Yeah. So, do you still practice competitive programming, and how do you
No,
manage
no, no.
time?
I
Okay.
left CP just the day I got my Goldman Sachs internship result, because that was my sole target to crack GS. After that, I never touched CP, and it still feels so difficult for me to code a problem that I like to stay away from it. But it's good habit if you can keep it after going into job. If you can continue practicing CP, it would basically help you find a new job if required. But I usually don't do CP. I am more into development side. I do open source stuff, so that's what interests me more.
Okay. So could people connect with you on LinkedIn for some guidance or referrals maybe?
Guidance, sure, but referrals I usually don't provide unless I know people in person. Like uh, everyone has their own psychology, right? So I usually don't offer the referrals, but yeah, for guidance, you can definitely connect.
Okay, okay. So what advice would you give to candidates who are thinking or willing to join Amazon?
So for 23 batch candidates, I think the scenes are pretty difficult because most of the firms have started freezing their hiring process. Uh, but if you are into the 24 or 25 batches, then it should be fine. Like you should start with CP and you should be able to understand how DSA concepts are working. So that would give you a head start from now on because you are probably in your first or second years, right? If you are graduating in 24, 25, so you will have enough time. Recession will also settle up and companies will start hiring back. But if you're in 23, I think you'll have to get an edge from the other people because there would be a lot of layoffs and freeze hirings amongst all the companies, like not just Amazon, among various companies that are there. So you need to have that edge, start dedicating more time, practicing more concepts, and you should basically try to better up yourself. Even in case a recession comes, companies will still need a few engineers to run their companies, right? So that way, if you have that edge starting now, that should help.
Okay. So is work from home in Amazon still going on, or what is the scene, and what are the pros and cons of working in home and working in office?
So it actually depends on the org in Amazon also, that are they permitting work from home or not. So basically most of the orgs are permitting work from home, but they need you to come to office like 1 or 2 days a week. But some orgs like mine are completely remote. We don't have to go to office, but I still prefer going to office and I almost go regularly because the perks of going to office is you have the proper setup to work on. You have ultra wide monitors, comfortable settings and everything. And that gives you an environment to work, right? Like even if 4 or 5 people of your team decide to come to office, then it's a great initiative, right? You guys can interact, you guys can solve problems instantly. Because when you're working remotely, not everyone is working at the same time, right? Because there is no time foundation in work from home policies. I have people in my team who start working at 7 p.m. in the evening and they work overnight, but they are not available during the day. So it becomes difficult for us to communicate with them, and but they are doing their job and we are doing our job. So company doesn't have any problem with that, but internal collaboration becomes an issue. So, whenever given a choice, I would highly recommend, and I myself always go to the office because it gives you that culture and the mindset that, okay, you are here for a reason and you need to accomplish something. So, that way, it's always better to be in a physical space with your colleagues.
Yeah. So it was a great session. So before ending, any final suggestion from your side for the candidates and the audience?
Yeah, sure. So, like, first thing is manage your time wisely because what I have seen, most of the people after JE, they come to engineering colleges and they experience this new freedom, right? Like they have the power of social media, they have new phones in hand. So a lot of us basically mismanage our time by investing in all these things, right? But in, from the initial year itself, I have been quite antisocial. Like I don't prefer using all these social apps. I prefer meeting people in person and trying to know each other better because what edge you have in meeting in person is you form connections that last longer. You are basically able to understand the person's personality traits better when you are meeting in person, and you can understand the vibe around a person, which you are not able to understand virtually. So as far as possible, try to meet people in person. Avoid using social media a lot because there is a lot of distraction happening and you won't be able to focus much if you have less time remaining towards the placement. So what I usually do was I quit social media in like my first year itself. I used it hardly for 6 months, but there is a psychological, like I'm a student of psychology also. Like I read a lot about psychology, and there's this risk reward equation in anything you do in life. So, whenever you try to use social media, you always feel rewarded that I am connecting with new people. I'm able to view their content. They're able to view my content. We feel more connected virtually, but that doesn't reflect in real life, right? So, what I would recommend is try to build closer connections, because people will eventually help you take the next step in your life. It's not always you who can yourself do whatever you want. You will need support from your peers, support from people who are there to help you. Like in my case, I never wanted to do computer programming, but my friends forced me. Like, if you go to my LinkedIn, I even have a post, like I think in 2020, where I've tagged those friends who forced me to CP, and I would like to give them a major credit for helping me reach till here, because without their contribution, I would have never even started with that. So build friendships that last, and with people who will take you forward. And in the preparation side, I think you have all have a lot of content available already on the web, or there are a lot of platforms. So try to refine things and put things in a small plate rather than having to learn a lot of things. uh, Shorten down things to what essentially you require and what essentially you don't. There are a lot of interview experience videos available on YouTube, so just feel free to watch them once or twice, so that you understand the psychology of a particular company, like what actually they want. So you can have that mindset and start preparing in that direction rather than having to fill all the eggs in one basket. Try to take separate basket with one egg each, so that even if you lose a few eggs, you at the end of the day you will not sleep hungry. So that would be my closing comment. And yeah, feel free to have connect me over LinkedIn. And if you
Yeah.
need any guidance, you can ask Anshuman or me. Yeah, we'll be able to help
So one last question from my side.
you.
How is life going on?
Life is good. Yeah, there is a quite struggle because companies have started laying off. So there is that internal tension that starts to build up, right?
Yeah.
You focus more on your performance, right? Like you should be
Performance
the best
pressure.
performer, else you'll get laid off. But apart from that, you should have your own mental peace, right? So I usually have a very disciplined life. I'm early, but I wake up early. I have that meditation practice. I go for cycling. I go to gym. So I've built my routine in such a way to basically avoid distractions as much as possible. I can't assure that I'm 100% productive, but I still try to optimize the time that I have into the meaningful things that I can do. As for the weeks, I follow a tight schedule, and I usually don't spend a lot of time surfing the web or anything, because there are a lot of things that you need to take care of when you are working as a developer or any job role for that sake. You need to understand the nitty-gritties of things, then only you will be able to add something to the company. Because most of the folks are able to do what they are asked to do, but adding that extra edge to your work basically highlights that your contribution to anything that you're working on. So always try to put something from your side, a cherry on the top of cake, whenever you get an opportunity. Even working on college projects, try to bring some new highlights to the thing that you're working. That way people will start recognizing your efforts, and eventually you will have better opportunities to showcase your talent. If you just try to hide yourself from all these things, just want to get the things done, then you will be able to satisfy the job role, but you won't have that inner satisfaction which you get when you get appreciated by people for the extra 0.1% effort that you can put in. So discipline is must. Like, I think all of us should practice being a little more disciplined. I don't want all of you to quit social media just right away after this session. You should take that call sooner or later, because I'm quite of the guy who is into finance also. So I've been analyzing all these tech companies and everything. And since I started my college, I was short on Meta. Like, I knew that company would someday fall because the fundamentals are not correct, right? What essentially they are trying to do is they want to steal your productive productive time, and they just want to map it into something which will give you virtual happiness. So ethically, that concept didn't sound good to me. And as you can see from the financials, the Meta stock has fallen 60% from its all-time high. and that's pretty steep fall, right? So try to analyze businesses around you. As a student also, a lot of people in the corporate world lack this financial attitude towards money, right? They just get their salary, they spend it, and rest is in their bank accounts or just goes to some FD. But you should be able to understand finance from the starting of your job itself. Like even if you're in college, you should devote at least like 1 hour per week to understand what macroeconomics concepts are, what's happening around the world, because that absolutely gives you an edge in making crucial decisions in life. Like I have just started my career back like 3 or 4 months as a full-time employee, but I feel even my manager level people struggling with their finances. Like they have a lot of EMIs on them, they have taken debt, but they are not able to invest wisely. Somebody told invest in this stock, they bought that stock which has fallen 30-40% from the price they bought in. Now they're panicking to sell. So all of these things basically won't be happening if we all had a bit of financial literacy. So, if ever you get time apart from your preparation of DSA, CP, everything is necessary. Try to put some time in just understanding what's happening around the world, and you will have an edge among other people when you enter the real world.
Yeah, financial knowledge in India is very important,
Yeah,
along with technical also. But yeah, financial knowledge is necessary.
correct, correct.
So thank you for your time. It was a great session having you.
Thank you.
Thank you. And if anyone wants to join, connect with Abhi. I've pinned and commented his ID in the comment section. You can join. So thank you for your time.
Yeah, thank you,
Okay.
Anshuman. Yeah,
Thank
thank you for
you. We are
hosting.
ending here.
Yeah, bye.
Bye bye. Thank you.